First responders, thank you for all that you do. I'm Garrett Martin of the Alberta First Responder Mortgage Program, a program I put together myself. After spending 8.5 years in law enforcement, I got my mortgage broker's license, and now I'm a proud sponsor of the Alberta First Responder Association and doing mortgages for first responders. No matter where you are in Canada, reach out. We're talking exclusive rate discounts, cashback offers, and guidance from someone who's been in your boots. I know the demands of the job, and I know how to make homeownership easier. Whether you're buying, renewing, or refinancing, I'll compare top lenders from across Canada to save you money. So visit GarrettMartinMortgages.com or text me at 403-915-1025 and let's get to work for you. Thank you for your service.
Sirens, Slammers, and Service, a podcast for female first responders by female first responders. My name is Nikki Cloutier, and I will be your host. As a former correctional officer in Alberta for almost 2 decades and the founder of Blue Line Fitness Testing, which provides law enforcement fitness testing and first responder wellness workshops, I started this podcast as a way for female first responders to share the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of their daily work. I want to showcase the unique perspectives, skill sets, and personalities that women bring to a first responder career and share their stories. So get ready to laugh your ass off, learn a whole bunch, and be inspired by some pretty badass women. Let's go. Hey guys, we are back today, and today I'm joined all the way from Regina, Saskatchewan. I have the honor of interviewing Dr. Kimberly Bitz with the Canadian Institute for Public Safety Research and Treatment. Dr. Kimberly is a knowledge mobilization lead, and prior to that was a mental health occupational therapist with Saskatchewan Health Authority, working with clients with complex mental health and substance challenges. And as I said before, she is a doctor. She completed her doctoral research in alcohol use among women, finished that up about 2 years ago. And today, all the way from Regina, she is here to chat with us about the phenomenal resources the Canadian Institute for Public Safety Research and Treatment has for our first responder people. So welcome, Kimberly. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me today, Nikki. I'm really excited to talk all things mental health and first responders and public safety personnel.
Yes, I think it's a phenomenal thing that you guys are doing. So Kimberly and I were kind of met or acquainted or kind of introduced just out of cold call. Hey, we've got these resources. We see that you have this business, Blue Line, that deals with first responders. Can we put some stuff up at your place? And I was like, hell to the yeah, send me all the stuff. Let's put it up. And in the same vein, I said, okay, but then can I also interview you? Because I want you to be on the podcast. And so tradesies, I got some great resources. Our listeners are going to get some great strategies and resources from you. And I get the opportunity to interview you today. So I think that's phenomenal. So let's dive right in. You have such a unique background. So coming from mental health occupational therapist, which in and of itself is such a cool career. I've had an occupational therapist actually on the show before, I think season 7, I think she was on, just talking about even physical things, but to go deep into mental health as an occupational therapist, and then to be dealing with people with complex mental health and substance abuse issues even dives deeper. And as we all know, a lot of our first responder friends, we do have complex mental health and substance abuse challenges because that's how we cope. And then again, doing this doctoral research in alcohol use among women, which this podcast, Female First Responders, I know that a lot of us definitely use alcohol, probably more than we should. And we use it to cope, and we use it to numb things, and we use it to forget things and things like that. So super excited to dive into these topics today. But how did this come to be? How did you get involved in this? What drew you to this kind of work?
Oh gosh, my interest in this work has gone probably way back until I was a teenager and just growing up in a family with family members with special needs and recognizing that we all have a role to play in making things better for other people. So that took me kind of on this little journey into taking community health degree, and then kind of continued the transition. I got married, I had kids, I took a kinesiology degree, just kind of always building that skill set, always trying to figure out what else do I want to learn? How do I want to keep building and developing skills? So that brought me to working in Calgary. I was working at a brain injury rehab center, and I met an occupational therapist there. And I was loving the work she was doing. And I just knew, okay, one day, this is what I want to do. I want to go and get my master's and do occupational therapy. I thought that was a great career move for me, partly because I thought it didn't involve any math. That was a bit of a misconception. Still needed to learn some math, but that's okay. We got through that. And then when I was doing my occupational therapy degree, I spent some time working at Boyle Street in Edmonton. And I absolutely loved the outreach work, working with people there, and really kind of getting a glimpse into the fact that health, physical health, mental health, is also intertwined. You cannot separate the two things. And there's just so much more to physical and mental health. And then the straightforward things that a lot of us take for granted, right? We need to recognize that housing and connection and support are all really integrated in those things. So that just kind of kept me rolling forward with wanting to learn more about harm reduction and social supports and really diving into helping people. Throughout that time, I also was involved with the Canadian Mental Health Association here in Weyburn on their board of directors. So just always kind of trying to set that bar a little bit higher. And that took me towards, okay, now I'm seeing some challenges with clients around substance use. What role does occupational therapy play? So then I decided, okay, well, I need to, again, take some more education, which then took me toward that doctorate and doing those studies there. So like I said, it's just kind of a snowball. Once you start that snowball rolling down the hill and continuing to try to expand your knowledge base and continue to help people, you kind of end up with way too much education, but it's a great place to be. So
I always say though, like you can never have too much education. I have a friend right now who he wants to be a firefighter. And so that's kind of the track he's been on. And he just recently finished his paramedic school. And before he started, him and I were having a conversation. He's like, I don't know, am I just wasting this money? Like, like if I get on with fire and I'm halfway through this schooling, like I've wasted this money. And I always said, you know what? Education is never a waste, because no matter what, at some point you are going to use something from your education. Now, it might not be the topic you studied. It might even be anything close to the subjects or the context or anything like that. But something that you learned while you were in that educational phase is going to be used elsewhere. It may have been that you networked with somebody. It may be that you learned a way to retain information, or it might be that you've learned a way to research other things, or books that you didn't even know existed out there. There's always something to be said about education. I am a lifelong learner. I absolutely love, we talked about this before we started recording, I would love to go back and do my master's, except that I'm never writing a goddamn thesis paper. It's not happening. So whoever's out there that knows about any master's programs where I don't have to write a thesis, fire them up to me. I would be very interested in it. Because I think that like continually learning like that, right? You are always going to take something away. So I'm, big proponent for extra education. And again, especially when it's something so interesting, like what you're talking about, like all of these different kind of like rabbit holes that you got to kind of like dive into and go a little deeper in, like that's super cool too.
Yeah. And they all scaffold off of one another, right? So it's just layers upon layers of knowledge. And when you start to peel all that back, you can always find something that will benefit someone, right? Because we don't all respond to one type of treatment. We don't all need one type of intervention. And the more you are learning from kind of that more holistic approach with different modalities and different kinds of types of education, I think the better it set me up to be able to help people within the mental health field.
Yes. And so did you find like coming out of like, the different degrees of schooling and the different, like, again, avenues that you kind of went through, you said scaffolding, which I think is a really great way to say it, but did those kind of like the knowledge that you gained from this role build into this role and then build into this role and then build into this role, so that it wasn't just the education, but it was also the skill sets you were learning along the way that were able to kind of help?
Absolutely. They definitely kind of stepped into each success, like each subsequent education that I went for. It was all kind of building and building and building, and not just within the knowledge, but within those networks and connections that I was developing as well. I still am connected to people who I met through my undergrad program who maybe aren't necessarily directly involved with the mental health field, but some of what they have to offer can be utilized within mental health and within substance use. And so, it's kind of interesting, but I've built this incredible network, incredible community of people who I can tap at any time to be able to say, hey, here's a problem that I'm up against. What would you suggest? And that has been incredibly beneficial. And I love that I've been able to do that.
Yeah, I think that the network is huge because as much as we can expound knowledge and say, oh, went to school and did this, there's always going to be something that we don't know or that we don't know well enough to really give advice on or to be able to, share with confidence. But if you can reach out to somebody and say, hey, like, what's your take on this? Or what do you know about this? And then you can add that.
One of my university professors, when I was in OT school, she says, one of the best things we can ever say to a client is that I don't know, but I'm going to find out. And all of this education and the networks that I have created have enabled me to be able to do that. Because if I don't know, chances are pretty good I know someone who does know the answer to that question, and I can tap on those individuals to help support with that. So it's fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah. And so the previous role, like again, working as that mental health occupational therapist, kind of led you into this new role. You've been there with the Canadian Institute for Public Safety Research and Treatment since February. What was that? Like, what kind of drew you to this agency versus continuing on in that occupational therapist kind of role?
So I wanted to be able to draw on the skills that I gained within my doctorate. So utilizing some of the research skills that I had and the knowledge translation skills that I had. So within my role as an OT, obviously it's more direct client care, but within the role at CIPSRT, there's a lot of diving into the research, taking that research and translating it into kind of layman's terms is how we would say it, right? So we want to be able to make it really usable for public safety personnel, first responders. So I wanted that challenge. I was also looking to kind of just to, step out of my comfort zone a little bit, I think. So I'm, like I said, it's kind of the same with the education, just always looking to set that bar a little bit higher. So when this opportunity came up, I thought, that sounds really, really exciting. And it gives me an opportunity to use all of these different skill sets that I've developed. And it's been fantastic. I really love being able to do that. And when I first started with CIPSRT, they had their national conference in May. So I had started in February. National conference was in May. And so I got to meet a lot of really incredible first responders and other frontline personnel at that conference. And I just knew after talking with them and hearing some of their challenges and their struggles and what they needed, I knew I was in the right place because my team works to help develop those resources and really provide the supports that those people are looking for and make a difference. So.
Yes, absolutely love that. And I'm glad you call it CIPSRT because I was like, if I have to keep saying Canadian Institute for Public Safety Research and Treatment, at some point I'm going to screw it up. So CIPSRT, CIPSRT it is. I like it. And so from that, like again, guys, I'm going to be throwing this all in the show notes, but if you pop over to their website, like on the website alone is like so much stuff, like so many resources. There's crisis phone lines on there. There's studies, there's research, there's like RCMP stuff, RCMP study research summaries, there's training opportunities, there's online therapy. This is crazy, the amount of resources and information that's on this website. So can you break down maybe for me, like, if our listeners are coming and they're going, I heard this really great podcast and I want to take a look, what are some of the things that CIPSRT can do for them beyond, like, again, just heading to the website or like online things that they can take? How can they kind of access the work that you guys are doing?
Sure. Okay. So to kind of give a big overview of CIPSRT, we have what we call our hub, which is kind of where all of the resources that you're speaking about are located. So on the hub, we have all of the research summaries. We have video recordings of previous webinars. We have information about upcoming webinars and workshops. There's a lot of other evidence-based research stuff up there. So loads and loads of information that people can access there in various formats. So we have some infographics, we have some handouts. Like you said, we'll have links to that in the show notes. So that's a really great starting point to just kind of go browse around and see if there's anything that kind of jumps out to you. But with CIPSRT, we also have what we call PSPNET. And PSPNET is where people can access actual online treatment. Now, the online treatment is free to most people within the public safety fields. So there's lots of people who will qualify for that. And it is free for people. I'm just going to pull up because it is only, there's two different ones. There's a self-guided and it's online CBT. So we know CBT to be evidence-informed. It's a really, really effective treatment for individuals with different mental health disorders, such as post-traumatic stress disorder. So if you're in Saskatchewan, Ontario, Quebec, New Brunswick, and Nova Scotia, and I think PEI, those provinces can also access therapist-guided CBT resources. So there are the two different options on the PSPNET. So again, one is self-guided and one is therapist-guided. Everyone in Canada can access the self-guided one. And then if you're in those few select provinces, you can access the clinician-guided one. Excellent, excellent resource. It's all online, it's private, it's confidential, access it anytime you need. Really, really effective online resource that's available. So that's also on a link to, and we'll put that in the show notes as well. But again, like I highly recommend that as a really great starting point. And then you can kind of add resources as needed from there.
Yeah, I think that multi-layered effect or like that multi-layered approach, super helpful.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, across Canada, like, so we have listeners from all across Canada. I didn't even think, like, I was just thinking my Alberta people, but yeah, like across Canada, if you want to access the stuff, it's there. You can take a peek as well. So like, again, I'm just kind of looking down at your website, right? There's a longitudinal study of Correctional Services Canada, correctional officers, mental health and well-being, the role of prison work and prisons in shaping correctional staff health and self over time. Like, so like, there's just, this is super dialed in to our first responders. It's not like, again, sometimes I find, when we're looking for mental health resources or we're looking for, help for ourselves, or peer support, being able to share resources, it's like, here's a generic tool or strategy that's like good for the general public without any real like dialed in knowledge of what we're dealing with, of what we're going through. And I know, like, again, I've talked about this in so many episodes, my own mental health journey through my career and the struggles that I had and how you go to talk to somebody and you spend the first meeting of your, designated fix that you get with your benefits, just trying to freaking explain where we work and what it's like and the slang and and in your head, you're thinking, I'm wasting this freaking hour. Like, I only get 6 of these and I wasted the whole first one freaking explaining this shit. Like
100%. And that's where, so the clinician guided CBT course, those clinicians only work with people who work in the public safety field. They know what the challenges are. You don't need to explain it to them. They are very familiar. The researchers who put the work into designing these courses know those challenges because that's who they spoke to pull this information together, right? All of the resources were very specifically tailored to public safety personnel because it's not the same, right? We know you have different challenges. For example, we've got a well-being course and a sleep course. When we talk about sleep for people who work in the public safety field, if I was to say to you, well, your sleep will be fine, but you just need to go to bed at the same time every day. What is someone who works in corrections or is a first responder for a paramedic? like, what are they going to say? They're going to laugh at me and be like, lady, you don't know what the hell you're talking about, because I can't go to sleep at the same time every day. So when you go to these resources, the advice that is being given to you is not going to be cookie cutter advice that we're just going to give to everybody that doesn't work shift work or doesn't understand the challenges of the job. And I think that's the thing that sets CIPSRT apart from a lot of other mental health resources, is that it is very specific for public safety personnel.
Even the slang, like, again, that's a big thing too. When you're just trying to like get it out, you finally took the courage, had the bravery to come forward and say, I need help. And then you have to explain half of the things, half the acronyms, half of the slang, half the things that we say. It makes you want to clam up that now you're talking to somebody that doesn't know what you're talking about. And so then you don't want to share that stuff. So having that background knowledge, having that specific help for what we need, I think it's incredible. It's such a great, and the fact that it's so readily available. Here's the website, boom. Here's the resources, boom. You guys you're so good at like the materials again that we have at Blue Line. There's cards, there's little there's posters, there's little thick magnety cards, there's pamphlets, there's you name it, we've got it. So if you guys, again, if you're at Blue Line and you want to stop by and grab some, we've got a bunch. They shared so many great resources with us that are on the table at the front for anybody just to grab. So,
and we did just start a new program at CIPSRT where you can go onto the website and you can order the resources, and those will be delivered to you. They'll be printed and delivered free of charge depending on the number. So if we're over a certain number, obviously there'll be some shared costs, but yeah, you can get a lot of these really incredible resources free of charge. So I talked a little bit about the sleep course, but there's also some sleep cards. There's like a set of ring cards, and there's another set of kind of well-being cards in there that are just incredible. You can just kind of have on your person. You can keep it with you in your locker at work, wherever, right? So there's some really, really incredible stuff that the team has developed that I highly recommend people check out.
Yes. And so as we kind of break that down, let's jump into a little bit of what without kind of having to go to the resources or having, have to go to the website, what in your professional opinion would be strategies or tactics or things that we as first responders can do on a day-to-day basis to keep ourselves healthy, to keep ourselves well, to keep our mental state, where we need it to be in order to be able to continue to do our jobs, to continue to go out and serve the communities and the people that we serve.
Right. So I like to talk a little bit about putting together what we call your mental health toolkit. So I spoke briefly with USJE on their podcast and talked a little about how we all engage in preventative healthcare, right? We brush our teeth, we eat healthy, we exercise, and we do all of those things so we don't get sick. But with mental health, we tend not to do anything ahead of time. We're more reactive with mental health. So I say start now and get preventative. So put strategies into place now while you're well, because when you're unwell, it can be really, really hard to then dip into those strategies. So have them ready, be thinking about it, right? Because shit happens. And that's the unfortunate reality, right? We never know when something might happen that's going to set our mental health back. I talked to you a little bit, like you were aware, I'm off for surgical recovery. That is really hard on mental health. It had nothing to do with my career. And that's the other thing, right? We anticipate that it might be something work related, right? It might be a bad accident, or it might be something violent happened at work that sets off our mental health, but it could be something else. It could be a career change. It could be an injury that sets us off work. So we just never know what's coming. So getting those tools in place can be really helpful. There's typically kind of what I have is like 4 categories for those self-care tools. So self-awareness, we always need to be checking in with ourselves. Like, what's going on with me today? Do I need to do anything to kind of take care of myself? And I would compare that to like you checking your blood pressure, checking your glucose levels, right? Self-awareness is just checking in, what's my status right now? And we have tools for that on our website. There's some self-assessments on there that anyone can take at any time at your leisure, just to see where am I at with that. Self-regulation is another really important kind of component within that toolbox. So we all kind of have that thing where you're kind of overtired or overstimulated, or like to say, you need a Snickers. What does your self-regulation look like, and what can you do to check in with it, right? So I have a little worksheet that I can give you to put into the tools, because the worksheet will have some links and stuff to further expand on this, because this could be quite a long presentation. But learning some self-regulation strategies can be really helpful. There's people who bounce their foot. There's people who use weighted blankets. There's people who click their pen. All of those are different things that people do to self-regulate. But there's lots of really helpful strategies we can learn in that area. The other really important area within your mental health toolkit is developing connections. So COVID was a really good example of what happens when we don't have social connection, we don't have social support, right? So we want to make sure that we have peers that we can talk to. And maybe you don't feel comfortable with the peers that you work with, so you could try to seek out some peer support groups. We do have one at CIPSRT called Peer Connect that we run every few months. That's a great option to just kind of get together and talk with other people about what you're going through. And that's a really important one, because part of what often can happen is if you don't have those peer connections, some of that dumping takes place at home. And we don't always want to dump what we're dealing with on our friends and family, right? We need to have another place to talk about it that's safe and healthy. You can have a designated support. So maybe there's someone who your workplace has assigned through like an EFAP or other program that you could seek out to talk to, or other peer support connect groups. So there's lots of different options. It's just a matter of making sure you take the time to find one, whether it's formal or informal, so you have someone that you can connect with. And then the other really big important area, which people tend to not seek out until it's too late, or it's kind of not too late necessarily, but kind of after the fact, is recovery tools. So we can be learning CBT skills before we struggle, because if you have them in your toolbox, then you can use them all the time before you're really kind of spiraling out of control. You can take up some other healthy recovery strategies, like exercise is a really big one, getting out in nature, using animal therapy, lots of different ways to work through some of that stress and anxiety there. Boundary setting. This is a big one that a lot of people don't do until they reach a breaking point. And then it becomes more of an explosive, challenging issue versus a preventative issue. So if we learn to kind of set boundaries earlier before we become stressed and overwhelmed and starting to break apart, it can be a lot healthier for everybody involved. And then, seeking out those formal therapies. So learning CBT, there's somatic therapy, there's, ACT therapy, DBT. There's a whole host of different therapies that we know are effective. CBT would kind of be our go-to and our gold standard. That would be the one that is the most recommended, but it's kind of like anything. It's not going to be one size fits all. Everyone really has to find that approach that's working for them.
Awesome.
That's kind of, in a nutshell, really quick overview, what I would suggest, but those are kind of the really important things. It's like I said, you wouldn't only brush your teeth once you have a toothache. You want to make sure you're getting all of these things in place ahead of time.
Yes, I agree. And so for our listeners, because I know that there are some that don't know the acronyms, so can you break down a couple of those acronyms that you said? So CBT, EDMR, there's a bunch of them there.
Yeah. So CBT is cognitive behavioral therapy. And what that really does is teaches you strategies for challenging negative thoughts, learning how to reframe some of that negative thinking, learning how to put different strategies in place to help yourself when things are feeling really tough and like you're kind of in that stuck spot. EMDR is eye movement. Desensitization is a whole thing. That's another one that we actually just hosted a really great workshop. You can find that on our website and learn more about it, but there's some really, really great information there, including a little infographic that can summarize it for you. DBT is similar to cognitive behavioral therapy. So DBT is dialectical behavior therapy. It also teaches a lot of really good strategies around reframing negative thinking, how to use mindfulness, because that's a really, really important strategy, using mindfulness in your everyday. And that ties back to that piece about sensory regulation and being able to kind of check in with yourself. So it's a little bit of it's a comprehensive approach to managing your emotions and regulating yourself. And somatic therapy is really it's a psychotherapy approach that kind of talks about how stress and trauma are held within our body. So a lot of us are very familiar with that, rock in the pit of your stomach feeling when we're anxious. Some of us will get really tight shoulders. Some of us will get a headache. Some of us will feel like we have clammy hands, right? All of our stress and anxiety presents differently throughout our body. And sometimes it can present as back pain. It can present as chronic illness. There's lots of different things. And what somatic therapy really will help people do is get in touch with that. What's going on? What are you feeling? And kind of talk a little bit about how you can work through that.
Yeah, I thank you for just, breaking that down again. We kind of get into this where like, we know what we're talking about, but then I always have to like bring it back to like, not everybody knows all the things that we're talking about and what we're kind of breaking down for them. So I appreciate you breaking that down. And I really, again, like it's one of the things that we hear all of the time. So one of the questions I usually ask at the end of my podcast can be along the lines of like, what's a piece of advice you would give to somebody that's looking to get into the career? And I want to say, resoundingly, overwhelmingly, the number one piece of advice that our guests usually give is be proactive in your mental health. Get a therapist now before you start. Start going to somebody now before you get fucked up. Like before you hit it, go now. Because we all carry trauma. We all carry things from growing up. We carry things from previous life experiences that if we haven't dealt with, or we haven't resolved, or we haven't accepted, or we haven't worked through, and then we go into this environment where it's insanely stressful, there's multiple traumatic events that are going to happen day after day after day after day after day, and there's no end in sight, that if we already have shit we haven't dealt with, and now we're going to go and we're going to compound that with extra shit, like you need somebody. It's not a nice to have at any point in the first responder career. This is a need to have. So I love that you're, again, just pushing that proactiveness. And the other side of it, I really enjoy, again, coming from I'm a yoga teacher, my yoga background, is that just really being present and mindful in your body, doing that body check-in. Have I ate today? Have I drank water today? Have I slept well? How am I emotionally feeling? How is my physical body feeling? Am I tensing up? Am I clenching my jaw without realizing it? Do I have a constant fist clench? Even though I'm not mad, I'm not ready to fight anybody, I don't have to physically restrain, but am I just holding that tension in my fists and my hands and my arms and my shoulders? Am I, again, I'm a jaw clencher, right? Am I clenching my jaw without even realizing it? Can I soften and release that tension that I'm holding in my face that I don't even realize that I'm holding? And so that real physical, tangible check-in with ourselves to say, oh shit, yeah, there is something going on right now that I didn't even realize because I've been in this state for so long, right? And the somatic stuff, like I'm starting to dive into that a lot in my yoga practice and in kind of my personal, what I'm doing in my personal life. And it is just incredible, the things that come up when you go through a somatic practice. So
I know one of the RCMP officers that I spoke with at a recent Women's Day event, we were asking her, what's the one thing you do for your mental health? What did you take away from your learnings with CIPSRT? And she said at the end of her shift, what she would do now, she kind of changed her just the way her routine, just a small change in her routine. But before she got home, she would park on a side street for 10 minutes before she got home. And she would sit and just check in with herself, check in with her, what does my mental health look like right now? How am I feeling in my body? And she said she would sit there and just get right with herself until she got home. And she said it was much easier to walk through the door with that feeling of decompression versus walking in that door with the feeling that I need to go decompress. And she said it made all the difference for her. And it was a really small shift, but it can go a long way in improving how you feel.
Well, and I had heard very similar along those lines of like, before you go in and when you park in the garage, put a smile on your face before you walk through the door. Whether you feel like you want to smile or not, whether you're happy or not, physically doing that as you walk through the door, the first thing that your family sees is you smiling. They don't see you coming through the door grumpy, pissed off, brooding, traumatized. So they can see that shit on your face, right? You've had a real rough day. My kids could pick it out instantly. And they would be like, either do we go hug mom or do we back away? And how I spoke, the first words that came out of my mouth were then how they would gauge. If it was, hey girls, like, then they'd know, okay, mommy needs a hug. Come give mommy a hug. If it was girls, as soon as I walked through the door, I was like, whoa, moms, don't even go near her right now. Like, go hide, bug her off, like ditch out, don't even, which is awful. Like when I think about it now and again, I still catch myself. You have a shitty day out, in at work and you come home and you're like, fucking mom, right? I still catch myself because I can feel it and I can feel it coming off them. But when I think back to how many times I came through the door like that and how many times my babies had to gauge how they could approach me based on my body language and how I was when I came through the door. That again, is still to this day devastates me. But to put that smile on your face, whether you are feeling awesome or not. And again, I know that's not always going to be a thing you can do. There's going to be days where you're going to come home and there's no way you can paste a smile on your face, or you're going to paste a smile on your face and it's going to look like a grimace and it's going to be so fake and your family's going to be like, what are you doing with your face right now? Right. But at least on the majority of the days, you could you can take that moment to reframe yourself. I had that day. It was awful. I saw that shit. It was terrible. But now I'm in a different space. I'm walking through the door to seeing the people that love me, that I love, that I'm happy to be here with, that I'm happy to spend time with, that I get the, honor and privilege to spend time with. I'm going to smile for them because that's going to make it better when I come through the door. And so I think, again, a simple, tiny shift.
Exactly. And it puts you in the right state of mind to then be able to rationally say, today was really hard. And so here's what I need for this evening. So I might need to go for a longer walk, or I might just need to spend some time by myself, or I'm going to go make a phone call and talk to a friend. Because again, that comes back to putting into kind of place those boundaries and making sure we're asking for what we need in the moment. But we don't always know to get there, right? If we're not checking in with ourselves, we can be a little bit kind of like, I don't know what I want right now. I'm just irritated, right? And so that check-in gives us that time to be able to say, I know what I need right now, and ask for it in a nice way, in a rational way, which takes practice.
Yeah, it does.
After all, we're all in
It does. It takes practice. And I think that's the other part of this too, is that we do have to give ourselves a little bit of grace, because I feel like, we expect, because first responders, we are A-type personalities, 90% of us. We are, the people that are going for perfection. We're the people that are going for, I've got this, I can handle this, throw anything at me, I can, and so then when we can't pull our shit together, when we can't walk through the door and paste a smile on our face, when we can't, we're trying to do the check-in and we just can't. Our bodies are just like shutting down. You can't do it. Your mind is there's too much going on. Then we also judge ourselves and we're like, geez, like, why can't I fucking pull my shit together? Like, I know what I need to do, but I'm not doing it. Why can't I? And then we amp it up even more. And then it becomes like, give yourself a little bit of grace. The jobs that we do are incredibly difficult. And the human body was not meant to see these things on repeat, day after day after day, hour after hour, call after call, and just be okay with it, right? Like, and so it's okay if you can't hit that decompress button. If you can't sit in your car for 10 minutes and be able to take a breather before you walk through the door, yeah, if we can do it 90% of the time, fucking bonus. But if there's those days where you just can't, and that we're human, give ourselves that grace that at least we're trying. At least we're trying to do what we can to protect ourselves, to protect those that we love, to take care of our mental, physical bodies. So I think that's a big part of it too. Give yourself a little grace. Don't be so judgmental on yourself because you are trying. So
yeah, you do need to give yourself that grace and that permission to just feel, right? That's at the end of the day, some of us, you just need the permission to say it's okay to feel really crappy about what just happened. And, even with the new classification around moral injury and the understanding that moral injury is significant and does impact mental health, for a long time, that wasn't really recognized, that could be also contributing to post-traumatic stress injuries and such. So that recognition that, this stuff is really hard and it's going to impact you, it's going to have an effect. And the data supports that, right? You look at the rate of injury, it's something like 10 to 30% higher in public safety personnel than the general public. And then if we look at numbers, it's something like 45%, nearly 45% of public safety personnel will have some type of mental health injury. Yeah, it's significant. So grace is very important.
Yeah, I think the other side of things we don't necessarily talk about, but in my opinion and in my experience, is not necessarily the traumatic things that we see, the shootings, the stabbings, the violence, the whatever, the threat to yourself. It is that what I've heard it called as station stress, it's that favoritism, that unfairness, that, I'm just doing my job. Why is this management making this so hard? Why is there this favoritism? Why did that person get promoted and this person didn't? Why did that person get promoted and I didn't? Why did that person get that opportunity and I didn't, right? Why is that person allowed to be a lazy sack of shit that doesn't do their job, but I'm over here busting my ass and I'm not getting recognized. I'm just getting more shit dumped on me because, oh, hey, I do my job. Like, why aren't you dealing with that lazy guy over there, right? And so I think that's a big part of it that we don't really, I gotta, like, I just came like last week before, I was at a mental health symposium. It was put on by Legacy Place here in Edmonton. Fantastic event. I will 100% be going back next year. It was very, very interesting. A day filled with speakers, different first responders from totally different backgrounds. But the general thread was the same, which was incredible. Like, these were people from federal corrections to EPS to firefighters to paramedics. Like, it was the whole gamut of first responders, and everybody had a very similar thread through their story. And a lot of it was this station stress, this, getting fucked over at your job, and supposed to be okay with it. I'm supposed to be okay with it multiple times. And as I was walking in, I actually ran into an old coworker of mine, and I haven't seen her in, a couple of years, and she was bawling. And I was like, holy crap, like, that speaker must have been very, like, struck a chord. And she just turned to me and she said, no, it's the same old shit, Nikki. It's the same old shit from the jail. We're still dealing with it. And she's like, it's just that this time it's now hit me and it's hit my personal life and it's hit, and, and I was just like, oh my God, but we don't talk about it. And I don't know if there's a way to talk about it or to get that part of it, because the public looks at us and they go, oh yes, we need all this mental health support for our first responders. We can see that they're seeing car crashes and suicide attempts and having to give death notifications, and they're, dealing with children that are being abused. Like, they can see the external trauma, but what they don't see is that internal trauma. And so, in your opinion, where do you see that fitting into this? Is there research on it? Is there ways to deal with it? There's something that we can do that will help to mitigate that?
I definitely am aware that it's a problem, and it was something that came up at the CIPSRT conference as well with the call center staff, and that acknowledgement that not all public safety personnel are necessarily being treated equally, even when it comes to different benefits and services that they can obtain. So And having worked in the healthcare system, we all kind of know, like, yeah, there's those challenges of people being promoted who maybe weren't the best person for the job, but they were promoted because of seniority or butt kissing and, all those different things. To be perfectly frank, I haven't looked at the research around it yet, but it's definitely something that we do know is a bit of an issue. I did see something, and we might have to circle back to this, and I can see if I can find the resource, but out of the UK, there was some research that I did see, but I couldn't, like, off the top of my head, really get into the weeds as to like what all they talked about that came out of that. But I do think, again, it kind of does come back to how do we change a lot of those systems levels challenges, because we know that recruitment and retention are suffering across all sectors, not just public safety personnel, because of the way the systems are working. It's not effective. So that's kind of a generalized response to that question. But I do think it's something that we do need to look at more, because we talk about burnout within my own field. But again, a lot of it really does come from the systems challenges that are more management level than necessarily frontline.
It was, like I said, it was one of the things where I kind of, like, as I was sitting at the back of this symposium and kind of listening, and I was thinking, because I feel like I have kind of a unique perspective in that I did frontline and then I moved into management. And so I could see it from both sides, whereas a lot of frontline just stay at frontline. They might move into like middle supervision, but they don't usually go up into that management level. And so to see it from both sides, and just like, again, for our listeners, let me tell you, you just get fucked at all the levels, guys. If you haven't listened to the podcast, if you haven't heard all of my other episodes, you get fucked at every level. It's not like you become a manager and then you don't get fucked. You still get fucked, guys. Like, just FYI. Sometimes it actually gets worse. Yeah, right? Like, but I did.
You're getting it from two directions.
Well, exactly. And I did feel it was frustrating to me as a manager to know what we needed to do it right, and to still not be able to do it because I was being pressured to not do it, to shut my mouth, to just toe the line, to, Nikki, don't make waves. No, we're not going to dive into that. But meanwhile, knowing like, but if we just did these three things, everything would be better. It wouldn't be, again, I'm not saying I'm fucking solving the world issues, but it was like, if we do these three things in the facility that I work in, this will make a massive difference. And just being told like, yeah, but thank you, but no. And being like, what? Like, what? Why not? Yeah. Right. And so I like, again, I can see it from both sides. And I know that there are, like, again, I never want to be the person that shits on management. Oh, all management's like, no, they don't. No, they don't. A lot of them are good people that are trying their freaking hardest. And sometimes they're put in a position where they have to make a decision that they don't agree with, but they're being told that that's the decision and you're going to roll it out. And so, like you said, that pressure from both sides. But I do think there is a lot of poor leadership that has been promoted, and that it just trickles down and it gets worse and worse and worse as it rolls downhill. And so again, how do we fix it? It's going to take some time for sure. So I agree I just like to ask the question, because I'm like, maybe there is an answer out there and I just don't know it. Maybe there are smart people like you out there that do know what we need to do. We just need to do it.
I think the thing is, it's hard because it's one of those situations where we talk about, they are in charge, or they make the decisions, they, but one of the things that I've really taken away as I've worked through all of my education is there's no they, it's us. And we have to get involved, right? So it's kind of that getting involved, being an advocate, being the squeaky wheel, kind of keeping up the good fight, which not all of us have the emotional bandwidth for. But if you do have that bandwidth, then you can get involved with different associations, with different unions, with different advocacy groups to try to affect that change. That really is kind of where it has to come from. It's just, it can be really hard. We're all stretched. We've all got a lot of commitments on our plates already. But if you have capacity, jump in there and try to make that change. That's really where it has to come from.
Yeah. I love that. That is a fantastic piece of advice. Okay, well, we have taken a lot of your afternoon, so I wanna start to wrap up. But again, phenomenal information. Great. Like this website, guys, the resources here. If I cannot say it enough, go take a peek, go look, go see. You never know what you might find there that might speak to you, that might resonate with something that you're going through, or somebody that you know that might need that help or that resource. So please go take a peek. Again, information is going to be in the show notes, so take a peek there. But to wrap us up, I want to ask you again. I always ask this one of my guests. It's one of my favorite questions, and for you, it's slightly different because normally I ask it's while on shift, but for you, while you've been working through your doctoral research in alcohol use among women, what was your favorite food or snack as you slogged through trying to write that damn thesis?
Popcorn is my go-to. Popcorn, always popcorn, because you can eat and eat and eat at a giant bowl of popcorn and it just keeps going.
Yes, that is great. I do. Popcorn is one of my favorite, and it's because it's for me, it's the salty butterness. I love that. I'm a salt person, not necessarily a sweet person. So yeah, I'll go for popcorn all the time. Totally. As soon as you said that, I was like, popcorn sounds delicious right now.
Girl dinner.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Exactly. Okay. Next question I have for you, and you have given quite a few, but what would be a piece of advice beyond, being proactive, checking in with your body, those types of things that you would give to somebody that's looking to get into the career, or maybe is kind of in this career and is starting to hit that burnout stage, is starting to hit that wall? What would be a piece of advice you would give?
I guess it's make sure you talk to someone, talk to your trusted other, and have a trusted other. Like, I think, so many times we try to keep a lot of what we're dealing with to ourselves, and that just doesn't work in the long term. It doesn't work, and you need that trusted person who you can talk to, that it has your back. So just be open and talk to people and tell them where you're at and what you need, and make sure you have that person if you are going into the field, because you're going to need it.
Yes. Great piece of advice. Absolutely great piece of advice. I do agree with that. I think that was one of the things that saved me, was having an external community beyond work, because we talk about this, you start working in these jobs, you're working shifts, those people you're with them on your birthday, you're with them on Christmas, you're with them on, all these holidays and things like that. They start to become your family. But when those people that you work with become the only people that you affiliate with, that you hang out with, that you socialize with, and the only thing that you do while you're with those people is work, talk about work, tell stories about work, bitch about work, right? Like, that becomes your entire identity, and that's not healthy for anybody.
No. And I can't remember where I heard it from, but someone recently said, when you retire, you feel like you're going to stay in touch with everybody forever, but 6 weeks, 6 months down the line, you're not in touch with any of those people. That career is gone. Those people are gone. What do you have left? You need to make sure you're building something that is still going to be there when that career and those people that you work with are no longer there.
Oh my God. Mic drop on that, because that is exactly that is exactly right. Like, that was me when I left the career, right? I thought same thing. These are my best friends. These are people I've known, I've been working with for like almost 20 years. I'm totally going to stay in contact. We're going to chat all the time. Fuck no. Like, there's a handful of people that I still talk to, that I still, go for lunch with, meet up with, connect with. If I see them, I'm like, oh my God, hi, how are you? But like, do we text every day? Nope. Do we go for lunch every week? Nope. Like you said, and it doesn't have to be retirement. It could be leaving the job for whatever reason. You think those people are going to be your ride or dies for everything? No, they're not. So yes, that is incredible. Okay. And the last one I have for you, a little differently, but what would you say is the biggest surprise that you've had in your life in the last few months, and why? It doesn't necessarily have to be related to work. It could be just totally something different, but biggest surprise you've had in your life, and why?
Oh gosh, that's a hard one. The biggest surprise. Honestly, it probably was taking this position at CIPSRT and getting to know the public safety community more. Obviously, as an OT, I've worked with paramedics, I've worked with police in the ER with a lot of the medics in there, but getting to know the community more has been a pleasant surprise, mostly just because everybody's got a wicked sense of humor, and I've just loved every minute of this job.
Well, welcome to the first responder family, Kimberly. We're so happy to have you. Come join the dark side. We're over here. Yes,
I'm here for it.
We do have very dark humor. We do have very, very, wicked senses of humor. Sometimes to the point where you're like, you kind of catch yourself and you're like, you look around and you're like, who is in listening shot of what I'm about to say? Is it people that are going to be offended, or is it people that are going to think it's funny? Like, let me do a quick check over my shoulder.
Very similar to just general healthcare staff. That gallows that it's what you hold on to sometimes.
Yes, it's funny. My best friend is an emergency room nurse, and so she lives in Calgary, so we don't get to see each other that often. But as soon as we get together, it's like instant dark humor. And her husband is a firefighter, so he gets it. But my husband is like a heavy duty mechanic. So sometimes he'll hear the three of us talking, and you just look over, and his face is like, oh.
Yeah. Can you say
that? We're dying laughing. We think it's the funniest thing. And he's just like, I am traumatized just listening to your guys' conversation. Well, Kimberly, this has been a great conversation. Such good information. Again, and for me, it's great to talk to somebody that has a slightly different perspective. You're coming to this from a different background. You're seeing it from not necessarily an outside perspective, because you're in with us. Now you're sucked in. You're never getting out. We're going to be with us for the rest of your life. But just coming to it with a different lens from your background, and seeing and hearing your take on things, and just the knowledge level that you have is incredible. So thank you for choosing to be on the show, taking that shot in the dark and just stepping out of your comfort zones to come on and talk about all the awesome work you do. Is there any last words that you want to leave with our listeners?
Thank you for having me. And I really hope that everyone who listens will join us in Calgary in May of 2026 for our upcoming conference, where you can meet all of our great staff and see our resources up front. And there'll be lots of great presentations. So this is great. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. And yes, Blue Line will plan to be at this conference in Calgary. And if you're out there and you want information about it, I'll be throwing it up in the show notes. Take a peek, register, bring a friend, find somebody that you want to come with you. The more that we can get out there, the more information we can share, the more people we can have attend these events, the more that ripple effect goes out. So thank you, Kimberly. It has been an absolute treat to have you on the show. Well, that's it for today, folks. Thanks so much for tuning in, listening, giving me your time, your energy, and your attention. I completely appreciate it. Make sure you check out our next episode with another badass female first responder anywhere you get your favorite podcasts. And follow us on Instagram and Facebook at bluelinefitnesstesting.com. I hope you stay safe, keep your head on a swivel, and watch your six. Blue Line Fitness Testing is a premier law enforcement fitness testing and training center based in Edmonton. Specializing in helping individuals prepare for the physical demands of a career in law enforcement, we offer comprehensive fitness evaluations, specialized training programs, and classes tailored to meet the unique needs of our clients. Our facility hosts a range of classes and are committed to fostering a supportive and empowering environment where clients can achieve their fitness goals. Our team includes experienced trainers who bring specialized expertise in law enforcement, self-defense, personal training, and rehabilitation. We engage through our community through challenges, events, and our podcast, and we are dedicated to helping individuals succeed in their fitness journeys and career aspirations in law enforcement. Are you looking to get started with your career? Come see Blue Line Fitness Testing, and we'll get you there.